Stop. Before you open your mouth and say, "I'm poor," ask yourself something brutal. If you're really that poor, why do you still have the luxury to scroll, to complain, to dream about a different life? While someone with less than you is already moving like the world owes them nothing and still taking more than you ever asked for. Why does the guy with no degree, no safety net, and the same cracked phone as you somehow walk like he owns the future, while you sit there telling yourself a story about being broke, stuck, unlucky? Why is it that two people can both have nothing in their bank accounts? One becomes dangerous, focused, disciplined. The other becomes bitter, jealous, and quiet. Same numbers, different mindset. So here's the question this video is built around. Are you actually poor? Or have you just been trained to think like you're poor? Because the most dangerous poverty is not in your wallet. It's in your imagination. You were raised in a world where rich and poor are used like prison labels. Low income, broke, middle class, upper class. You see someone's car, phone, apartment, clothes, and instantly, your brain slaps a status tag on them. You do it to yourself too. You open your banking app. You see 2 digits and some coins. You repeat it as a joke with your friends. You throw it into your sentences every day. It feels harmless. It's not. Every time you say it, you are branding yourself. You are teaching your own nervous system who you are in the world. The one who doesn't have. The one who can't. The one who's on the outside of opportunity, looking in through the glass. Machiavelli would look at you and say something cold. You don't understand what people are actually judging. He wasn't talking about bank balances, but his words slice right through your situation. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. Niccolo Machiavelli hears what that means for you. The world isn't checking your bank account. It's checking your appearance. Not just your clothes or your shoes, your energy, your body language, the way you speak about yourself. When you keep telling people, and yourself, that you're poor, you're not just describing your finances. You're announcing your identity. You tell the world, "Treat me cheap." You've seen this play out. 2 guys go for the same opportunity, same experience, same talent, both with almost nothing in their accounts. Guess who gets the chance? The most convincing. And convincing doesn't start with tricks. It starts with how you see yourself when you own nothing. Right now, you might think wealth starts with money. It doesn't. Wealth starts with leverage. Money is just one form. You can own no property, no car, no savings, and still be richer in potential and power than someone with an inheritance and 0 spine. But nobody ever sat you down and explained that difference. Your parents, your school, maybe even your father probably taught you this formula. No things equals poor. Many things equals rich. So when you own nothing, you don't just feel broke. You feel less than human. That's why your posture changes when the bill comes. That's why you look at people with more and quietly resent them instead of studying them. You don't think you're temporarily low on cash. You think you are fundamentally poor. And a man who truly believes he's poor moves like prey. He sells his time cheap. He stays in any room that throws him crumbs because he thinks that's all he can get. That is the real poverty. Machiavelli wasn't writing about broke 20-somethings in tiny apartments, but his entire philosophy was built on this. Reality matters. But perception drives power. If you believe you're poor, you will act like a man the world can discount. If you believe you're temporary, dangerous, and building, you will act like a man the world has to account for, even before the money shows up. Someone left a comment under a clip I saw that hit me. I grew up repeating, "I'm poor" my entire life. When I finally stopped saying it, not because I got rich, but because I got sick of feeling like trash, I realized I still had my brain, my health, my time, and a phone with internet. That day I stopped calling myself poor. 2 years later, I make more than anyone in my family ever did. The money came last. That's the shift this video is here to force on you. Not delusion, not fake flexing. A ruthless recalibration of what poor actually means. Let's be brutally honest. If you have enough food to not starve today, enough health to move your body, enough internet to watch this, enough time to scroll and complain, you're not poor. You're underutilized. Poor is the child in a war zone with no safety, no options, no access to anything. You're in a world where one idea on that phone, one skill, one connection, one project can rewrite your entire life over the next 5 years. Does that mean it will be easy? No. The poverty you're dealing with right now is mostly mental conditioning. If you keep that script, You will sabotage every opportunity that doesn't match it. You'll feel like a fraud when life tries to upgrade you. You'll self-destruct when you start to win. Machiavelli would tell you something savage about this moment in your life. You're in the best position you'll ever have to build fortune, because you have almost nothing to lose. Niccolo Machiavelli, forget the outdated language for a second and look at the core. Fortune, luck, opportunity, success doesn't reward the cautious, apologetic, self-pitying man. It bends, reluctantly, to the man who moves with audacity. Who is more dangerous? The guy with savings, a stable job, 3 safety nets, and a comfortable routine? Or the guy with nothing, who decides he will treat his nothing as freedom to be bold? The second man is terrifying to the system. He can take risks the comfortable man is too scared to take. He can reinvent himself 3 times in 3 years, while the secure man is too busy protecting what he has. He can move countries, change careers, pivot projects, without feeling like his identity is melting, but only if he stops calling himself poor. Your nothing can either be your prison or your launchpad. Right now, you might own no house, no car, no business. Okay, what else do you own? You own your time, maybe more of it than the rich man working 70 hours a week to pay for his lifestyle. You own your body, maybe not perfect, but movable, trainable, capable of more than sitting and scrolling. You own your attention, still half-wasted, but capable of focusing on something for hours if you choose. You own a phone and access to more information for free than kings had access to 200 years ago. You own your story, still being written, not locked into a role yet. That's not nothing. That's capital. But the poverty mindset discounts all of that. So you walk through life like a man holding $1 million in invisible assets, crying because his pockets are empty. You know what Machiavelli would call that? Foolish. Not because your struggle isn't real, but because you're blind to the leverage sitting in your hands. No, you change how you act now, and money becomes just one of the side effects. Someone else dropped this under a video. I realized I wasn't poor. I was just living like a consumer instead of a future producer. I still had Netflix, Uber Eats, and a gaming PC, but I told myself I was broke. I sold half my crap, canceled half my distractions, and suddenly I had money to invest in learning and building. I wasn't poor. That's the Machiavellian lens. Don't cry over what you don't control. Exploit what you do. You can't magically summon money, but you can. Cut off debt expenses. Trade time-wasting habits for skill-building hours. Turn social scrolling into strategic networking and learning. Stop selling your hours cheap to people who don't even know your last name. Niccolo Machiavelli, in other words. The wise man looks at his nothing and moves now. The fool waits until he's comfortable. The wise man invests when it's scary, when it's tight, when it feels like he can't. The fool waits until he has enough and never does. The wise man uses his empty schedule to grind. The fool uses it to numb himself, then complains about being poor. You know this is true because you can feel where you've been the fool. How many times did you tell yourself, I'll start when I have more money. I'll learn that skill when life calms down. I'll take that opportunity when I'm more ready. You were thinking like a cautious man trying not to lose his little. Machiavelli would shake his head and say, Fortune doesn't reward the man who waits until he feels safe. She bends, sometimes violently, to the one who moves while it still feels insane. So what does never think you're poor, even when you own nothing, actually look like in your daily life? It's not about lying to yourself. It's about refusing to let your bank balance define your identity and your behavior. You start saying, right now my money is low. You stop joking about your own failure. You start speaking about your future like it's non-negotiable. You stop shaming yourself for not having things yet. You start respecting yourself for being willing to build them from zero. You stop looking at rich people with resentment. Is it their network, their specialized skill, their timing, their risk tolerance? You don't copy their lifestyle. You reverse engineer their leverage. And while you're still owning nothing, you train yourself like a prince in exile. You read what other people won't. You practice what other people are too lazy to practice. You move your body while other people let theirs rust. You save when others flex. You think long-term when others live for Friday night. You act like a man who isn't poor, just early. Poor is an identity. Broke is a temporary condition. Never let the second turn into the first. You are a temporarily undercapitalized strategist in training. That's not delusion. That's a choice. A dangerous one. You stop dating people who see you as a charity project instead of a partner. You stop working jobs that treat you like a replaceable cog with no future. You start moving like your future self is watching you. If the man you want to become saw how you're acting right now, would he say, "That's exactly how I got here"? Or would he say, "I had to stop doing that before anything changed"? This is the ruthless part. You may own nothing on paper, but you own your discipline. You own your attention. You own your standards. Those are the foundations of every empire you admire. What you're building right now is not just a bigger number in your bank account. You're building the kind of mind that cannot be made poor, even if it loses everything. That's who you want to be. The man who could lose it all and rebuild, because his real wealth was never in the things. His real wealth was in how he thinks, how he moves, and what he refuses to believe about himself. In the next parts, we're going to get even sharper. We'll talk about how to use your nothing years to build ruthless skills, reputation, and relationships. How to stop broadcasting desperation so people stop seeing you as cheap. And how to position yourself so that when fortune finally swings your way, you're ready to grab her by the throat instead of asking politely for a turn. But for now, let this sink in. You might own nothing. You might be at zero. You might be tired, behind, embarrassed. That doesn't make you poor. Poor is the man who has given up his belief in his own power. Poor is the man who sells his identity for a little comfort. Poor is the man who looks in the mirror and sees a victim instead of a weapon. You're not allowed to think you're poor anymore. You're allowed to think you're untrained, underfunded, unfinished, but not poor. Because the moment you stop saying, "I'm poor," the world loses one of the easiest ways to keep you exactly where you are. You woke up this morning and nothing magical had changed. Same account balance, same room, same problems, and your brain tried to drag you right back into the old story. See, you're still poor. That voice is stubborn. It's been rehearsing that line for years. But here's the real war, not the numbers in your account. The war is over who gets to decide what those numbers mean about you. Because two men can look at the same empty wallet and tell themselves two completely different stories. One says, "I'm poor. I knew it." The other says, "Right now, I'm underfunded." That's it. Same reality, different script. You were never taught how dangerous that script is. So you grew up feeling guilty for even wanting wealth. Like wanting more was somehow disrespecting your parents. Like dreaming bigger meant you thought you were better than everyone who stayed small. You didn't get a financial education. You got a guilt education. Here's the cold truth. Feeling guilty for wanting more does not feed anybody. Not you, not your family, not your future kids. All it does is keep you emotionally loyal to a version of life that drains you. Niccolo Machiavelli put that in your context. It is not the job that makes the man rich. It is the man who makes the job valuable. You can have manager in your bio and still think like a beggar. You can have intern on your email and secretly be sharper, hungrier, more dangerous than half the executives. The label doesn't define you. You define the label. But if you keep saying, "I'm poor," you are doing the exact opposite of what Machiavelli is telling you. You are letting your current financial title define the man. You're saying, "My numbers honor me. My situation honors me." You're giving externals the authority that should belong to you. That's why you feel powerless. It's not just that you don't have money. It's that you decided money is the judge and you are the accused. So let's flip that. If you stripped away every title, every balance, everything you own, what's left? Your habits, your skills, your discipline, your energy, your reputation, your ability to learn, your willingness to do what others won't. Those are not cute self-help ideas. Those are the ingredients money eventually bows to. But only if you treat them like real assets, not consolations. Right now, you might be rich in potential and poor in consistency. Rich in ideas and poor in execution. Rich in time and poor in how you spend it. That's not poverty. That's waste. A real comment I saw once captured this perfectly. I kept saying I was broke, but somehow I still had money for cigarettes, beers, and streaming subscriptions. He wasn't poor. He was leaking. Ask yourself honestly, if I'm poor, why do I still have time to binge shows, energy to argue online, money for small daily escapes, attention for other people's lives more than my own? You're not poor. You're just behaving like a consumer instead of a builder. Same emptiness, different reaction. Niccolo Machiavelli, he wasn't saying things magically become easy. He was saying this: if you truly want it, your behavior will reflect that more than your words. If your willingness is real, you will turn your nothing into a training ground instead of a graveyard. You don't have a home office? Fine. You study in noisy cafes with headphones. You don't have a private car? Fine. You turn bus rides into lectures and planning sessions. You don't have a big budget? Fine. You learn how to get scary good at thinking, at writing, at talking, at solving problems, skills that cost time, not subscriptions. Look around your life. If we treated your time, attention, physical energy, and current knowledge as money, would you say you're poor? Or would you say you've been spending like an addict and calling it coping? This is where we separate comfort from power. Comfort keeps you emotionally soothed while nothing changes. Power makes you uncomfortable while everything slowly changes. Which one sounds like real wealth? This is also where envy creeps in. You don't see the debt they took, the years they stayed in while everyone went out, the hundreds of boring, unposted nights they spent learning and refining. You just see the surface and decide you're not in the same category. Niccolo Machiavelli, you're doing the same thing with money. You see someone's watch, car, vacation outfit. You assume that's reality. You see your tiny apartment, old clothes, basic meals. You assume that's your reality. But reality is deeper. Reality is what you're doing at midnight while everyone else sleeps. Reality is how many hours you're putting into skills nobody sees yet. Reality is what you're building in the dark, not what you can flex in the light. If you're using your lack of visible wealth as proof that you are poor, you're worshiping appearances and ignoring your own reality. You are a work in progress, judging yourself like a finished product. That's insanity. Let's talk about your job for a second. Maybe you're working something you hate. Minimum wage. Long hours. No status. So you half-ass it. You do the minimum. You move like a prisoner counting down his sentence. But here's the twist. If you treat your job like a prison, your mind will stay locked even long after you leave. If, instead, you treat it like a training ground and an investor, everything changes. Your crappy job is investing in your future when you decide, this is funding my freedom, not proving my poverty. This is where I study human behavior for free. This is where I train my discipline, showing up on time, doing more than I'm paid for, not for the company, but for my own standards. Same uniform, different identity. Someone once commented on a video, I was washing dishes in a restaurant hating my life. One day I decided to treat it like someone was secretly watching me and deciding if I was worthy of a better position. I started working like I was already being tested. Within 6 months, I wasn't in the kitchen anymore. I realized I wasn't poor. That's what happens when you stop letting your circumstances be the boss of your behavior. You might still own nothing, but you're no longer behaving like nothing. You're acting like a man who has something to protect, his own future. That is invisible wealth, and it compounds. Every hour you refuse to waste stacks. Every skill you sharpen stacks. Every time you say no to stupid spending and yes to delayed gratification stacks. You're saving respect for yourself. At some point, the outside catches up. Opportunities that used to look too big for you start to feel appropriate. People who used to be out of your league start to treat you like a peer. Rooms that would have intimidated you start to feel like your rightful environment. Not because the world suddenly became kind, but because you stopped acting like you belonged at the bottom. There's one more brutal angle Machiavelli would throw at you here. You are not the first man to face scarcity. You are not the first man to start with nothing. And a smart man doesn't try to invent everything alone. Niccolo Machiavelli, that doesn't mean copy their lifestyle. It means study their path. Look at someone who came from less than you and built more than you currently have. Instead of saying, must be nice, ask, what did they prioritize? What did they sacrifice? How did they use their nothing years? What skills did they triple down on? You don't need their exact route, but you do need to stop acting like your situation is uniquely cursed. Other men have walked through worse and built more. That's not an insult. That's permission. The moment you start seeing yourself as an early-stage builder instead of a permanent pauper, your decisions change. You stop buying purely to look less poor in front of other poor thinkers. You start buying to increase your value. Books, courses, tools, experiences that teach you people, markets, persuasion, systems. Every dollar becomes either a soldier you send out to work for you, or a hostage you use to buy another hit of distraction. You stop chasing the illusion of wealth, clout, trends, brand names you can't afford. You start chasing the foundations of wealth, skills, leverage, relationships, discipline. You stop telling broke jokes for validation. You start speaking like someone who expects to outgrow his current bracket. You stop believing being rich is about impressing strangers. You start believing being rich is about never having to betray yourself for money again. That's the real luxury. To be able to walk away from any offer that disrespects you and know you can create your own. But that future version of you doesn't show up out of nowhere. These are the years he'll be thankful for, or furious about. You decide which storyline he gets. In the next parts, we're going even deeper. We'll talk about how to stop letting money humiliate you emotionally, how to detach your self-worth from your net worth so nobody can buy your dignity, and how to build a reputation and circle that pull you out of mental poverty long before the bank confirms it. But for now, let this land. You can own nothing and still refuse to think poor. You can stand in an empty room with an empty wallet and still move like a man the world will eventually have to pay attention to. Not because you're delusional, because you've stopped selling your identity for a little bit of comfort and started investing it into a future where poor is just a story you once told before you remembered who you actually were. You remember the first time money embarrassed you. Maybe it was the card decline at the counter, the way the cashier's eyes flicked up at you for half a second, the way the person behind you in line sighed, like your existence was an inconvenience. Or maybe it was the night your friends split a bill and you had to pretend to check your phone so nobody noticed how long you stared at the number. They laughed with you. Everyone moved on. But a part of you didn't. A part of you quietly decided, I am less. That's the wound nobody talks about. Not just the stress of bills, the humiliation. Money doesn't just limit what you can do. It starts to tell you who you're allowed to be. You tone down your personality around people who look successful. You start to believe your opinions matter less in rooms where your outfit is the cheapest. Nobody had to say it. You felt it. So you took the easy way out. You adopted, I'm poor, as an identity. You used it as a joke, as a shield, as an excuse. The more you said it, the safer you felt, and the smaller you became. Here's the truth your father probably never said to your face. Money is a measuring tool, but it is a terrible mirror. The world will try to use it as both. You don't have to, because if you keep looking at your bank balance like it's a reflection of your worth, you will sell yourself for cheap the second someone waves a few extra zeros in front of your face. That's how men get trapped in jobs they hate, relationships they resent, environments that rot them from the inside out. Machiavelli understood exactly how easy it is to control people who think this way. Niccolò Machiavelli look at how money is used on you. They don't have to chain you. They just have to press your immediate needs and fears. Rent, food, status, loneliness. You feel the pressure. And without even realizing it, you start making choices from panic, not power. That is poverty thinking. Not because you don't have money, but because you are driven entirely by your immediate needs. That's what makes you easy to deceive. You will always feel poor as long as you are controlled by now. That's why you have to build something much more dangerous than a bigger paycheck. Delay. The ability to say, yes, my needs are real. Yes, my situation is tight. That's the dividing line between the man who stays poor and the man who uses poverty as a phase. One lives in reaction, the other lives in strategy. And Machiavelli? He was obsessed with strategy. Niccolò Machiavelli kings use that on their people. Companies use it on their workers. Drip feed you just enough salary to keep you from leaving. Just enough praise to keep you from questioning. Just enough comfort to keep you from risking. And you? You use the exact opposite strategy on yourself. You demand immediate benefits, instant reward, constant entertainment. So you give yourself all the benefits now, comfort, distraction, shortcuts, and all the pain later. Your future self wakes up to the bill your present self kept dodging. One guy wrote under a money video, I realized the system didn't need to trap me. I was trapping myself. They were giving me slow crumbs of salary, and I was giving myself fast hits of dopamine. That's the game. You want to stop thinking poor? Flip Machiavelli's law and use it on yourself. You give yourself benefits gradually. Instead of blowing every extra dollar on making today bearable, you start stretching the time frame. You reward discipline slowly. You let results taste better because they were earned over time. You train your brain that delayed satisfaction is your new normal, not a punishment. And at the same time, You become ruthless about how much humiliation you're willing to swallow for money. Because here's where identity and wealth get tangled. When you feel poor, you will do anything not to feel that way. Take any job. Accept any treatment. Pretend any behavior is fine, as long as the money hits. Machiavelli warned rulers about the cost of disrespecting people too much. He also warned you about the cost of letting your dignity be cheap. The more you accept humiliation now, the more they will demand later. So you have to decide, what line will I not cross, even if I'm broke? Not a fake Instagram line. A real one. That's not softness. That's setting a minimum price on your soul. Once that price exists, money stops being the god you bow to and becomes what it should have always been, a tool you use. You know what's funny? The moment you stop being so easily moved by money, people with money start treating you differently. You're no longer the guy who jumps at every offer. You're the guy who says, "What's the structure? What's the upside?" That's when you shift from begging for chances to negotiating terms. And for that, you need something Machiavelli understood better than most: privacy. Not secrecy from paranoia, privacy from weak opinions. Niccolo Machiavelli, your enemy, isn't just haters. It's doubt. It's small-minded people. It's anyone who hears your plan and immediately projects their own poverty thinking onto it. If you keep announcing every move while you're still weak, you invite sabotage. Sometimes intentional, sometimes accidental. Enough of those, and you start believing them. So what does a man do when he owns nothing but wants to become dangerous? He shuts up and builds. He lets his calendar speak instead. He stops trying to prove his hustle. He starts stacking quiet hours. He stops broadcasting his ideas to people who've never built anything. He starts keeping his plans close until they're real enough that nobody's opinion can kill them. I saw a comment that nailed this. Once I stopped telling my broke friends every idea I had, my motivation problem disappeared. I didn't need more motivation. Noise is expensive. It drains the little energy you have. It keeps you busy defending dreams instead of executing them. You are not obligated to make your journey understandable to everyone around you, especially if they've chosen comfort over growth. Silence is not poverty. Silence is compound interest on your focus. And here's the twist. The less you talk, the more your results will talk for you later. Fine. They don't see what's changing inside. The way you no longer shrink when bills come. The way you no longer joke about being poor. The way you don't instantly say yes to every social plan that costs money and gains nothing. They think you're being antisocial. You know you're being strategic. You do live once. That's exactly why you can't waste all of it numbing the pain of being behind. You need stretches of time where you look boring, missing, obsessed, so that later, your life looks effortless to the same people who mocked your discipline. Machiavelli talked about discipline turning cowards into brave men in war. You're in a different kind of war, but the rule still stands. You are not born brave with money. You become brave with discipline under pressure. And right now, your pressure is financial. Your battlefield is your calendar, your habits, your emotions. Someone commented this on a clip about being broke. My biggest flex isn't money. It's the fact that I don't panic when I see 50 left anymore. I don't crumble. That's the level you're aiming for. Unshakable. Not because you're rich. Because you've stopped letting money humiliate you into forgetting your value. So where does this leave you practically? It leaves you here, owning nothing, but no longer being owned by nothing. It leaves you with a short, brutal checklist. Stop calling yourself poor. Call your situation small, tight, early, anything but your identity. Stop chasing instant relief. Start designing delayed benefits that your future self will actually feel. Stop letting money buy your dignity. Decide what you will not do for any amount. Stop oversharing your plans. Build in private until your work is too solid to be laughed away. Stop treating every nice thing as a right. Treat every hour of discipline as your real luxury. You are allowed to be broke. You are not allowed to be spiritually cheap. In the final part, we're going to weld everything together. How to build a circle that doesn't keep you mentally poor. How to move in rooms where you still have less, without moving like you're less. How to build a reputation that makes people doubt their assumptions the moment they meet you. And how to live in such a way that, even if you lost every material thing tomorrow, nobody, not a boss, not a partner, not the economy, could ever make you think, I am poor again. Because once you stop thinking you're poor, the world stops being able to treat you like you were born to stay at the bottom. By now, something in you has shifted. You still don't have the money you want. You still don't have the car, the apartment, the bank balance you dream about. But look closely. You don't move like the same man anymore. You don't throw around, "I'm poor," like a punchline. You don't let every bill, every problem, every decline define you. You've started to see your nothing as material, not a sentence. That alone makes you richer than most. Because most people spend their entire lives letting the outside world tell them who they are. Their paycheck, their postcode, their job title, their clothes. You're beginning to flip it. You're starting to understand the uncomfortable truth nobody taught you growing up. You are not valuable because of what you own. What you own becomes valuable because of who you are. Niccolo Machiavelli, if you strip that down to your life, it sounds like this. It is not rich that honors you. There are people with money who move like cowards. There are people with status who move like jokes. There are people with houses, watches, and followers who are emotionally bankrupt. You've seen them. The insecure show-offs. The fragile bosses. The loud, empty guys at the table. They have the title. They don't have the man. You, right now, might have no visible title. No fancy introduction. But if you spend these years building the man instead of obsessing over the label, then when the titles come, owner, founder, director, investor, whatever, you won't be using them to feel big. You'll be using them to make the space itself more serious. That's real wealth. But you don't build that in isolation. And this is where your next ruthless lesson begins. You will never escape mental poverty if you stay surrounded by people who love it. Not people who are struggling. That's normal. People who are content with struggling forever. Niccolo Machiavelli, you are the ruler of your own life. So look around. Who are your men? Who are the 3 to 5 people closest to you? Do they spend their nights numbing out and laughing at anything serious? Do they talk more about other people than about ideas, plans, or growth? Do they constantly tell you, "Relax, it's not that deep," whenever you bring up getting out of your situation? If so, what does that say about your rule? You can tell yourself you're different from them, that you're the ambitious one in the group, that you're the one who really cares. But from the outside, nobody sees your exceptions. They see your environment and assume you match it. A guy dropped a comment under a video about this. "I wasn't poor. I was in a poor circle. The moment I spent more time with people who talked about building instead of complaining, my motivation problem vanished." It wasn't a mindset issue. You don't have to become a snob. You don't have to cut everyone off and make a dramatic speech. You just have to get honest. If the 5 people closest to me keep thinking and acting like this for 5 more years, do I want to end up where they're going? If the answer is no, you already know what you need to do. Less time, less access, less emotional investment in people who are married to their limitations. You can still love them, but love them from a distance that doesn't drag you down with them. And while you pull back from those circles, you need to deliberately step into new ones, even if you feel poor walking in. You know that feeling, standing in a room where everyone seems more successful than you. No, they can't. Most people are too locked in their own insecurity to even notice yours. What they do notice is how you carry yourself. If you move like you're ashamed to be there, they'll subconsciously agree you don't belong. If you move like a respectful equal, even while you're still early, they'll adjust to that energy. You might be the one with the smallest bank account in the room. That doesn't mean you have to bring the smallest presents. You don't have to act like a big shot. You just have to stop acting like a stray. You don't flinch and apologize. No shame. No fake flex. Just grounded, forward-facing truth. You're not poor. You're early. The men who intimidate you now, they started somewhere. They walked into rooms feeling exactly how you do, but they didn't let that feeling stop them from showing up. That's the difference between a spectator and a future player. And here's the part almost nobody says out loud. The moment you start moving like this, your old life will fight you. Your old habits, your old friends, your old self. Everything you use to numb the feeling of being behind will suddenly get louder, more tempting, more dramatic. Why? Because you are trying to initiate a new order in your own life. Niccolo Machiavelli, you're not reforming a kingdom. You're reforming your identity. But the same principle applies. Your old self, lazy, distracted, addicted to broke jokes and cheap validation. That self will fight for its life. And the people who benefited from that version of you, the ones who loved you drunk, unfocused, always available, they will too. Why are you being weird? You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're just doing something they're too afraid to do. You're taking the lead in the introduction of a new order of things, where you are no longer mentally poor, where you no longer worship comfort over progress, where you no longer sell your standards for a sense of belonging. Is it perilous? Yes. You might lose people. You might face months where it feels like nothing is happening. You might look insane to anyone who believes you should stay in your lane. Is it uncertain? Of course. You don't get a guarantee. You're building something that doesn't exist yet. But here's the brutal truth you already know deep down. Staying where you are has a 100% guarantee of you remaining exactly as stuck, ashamed, and underused as you feel right now. If that's not danger, what is? Niccolo Machiavelli, you want greatness without danger, comfort without sacrifice, change without chaos. That combination doesn't exist. If you're going to risk something anyway, your time, your pride, your sleep, your comfort, why not risk it on a life you actually want? Right now, you're already in danger. Danger of waking up at 40 realizing you traded your entire youth for crumbs. Danger of becoming the bitter older guy who laughs at ambition because it reminds him of everything he never tried. Danger of raising kids one day and accidentally teaching them the same poverty mindset you're trying to crawl out of. That's danger. Just slow, boring, socially accepted danger. So no, this isn't about becoming reckless. It's about choosing your risk consciously. You risk being misunderstood now, so you don't risk hating yourself later. You risk being lonely for a season, so you don't risk being surrounded by the wrong people for a lifetime. You risk looking obsessed, now so you don't risk looking back and realizing you deserved more, but settled. A guy once commented this under a similar video. I realized I was risking my whole life to avoid tiny embarrassments. That's it. That's the split. Poor thinking risks long-term life to protect short-term ego. Rich thinking risks short-term ego to protect long-term life. Where does this leave you? Or the person who refuses to think poor, even when he has nothing, and therefore moves like his future is inevitable if he survives the process. You've heard enough theory. Let's stitch it all together so it lives in your bones, not just in your notes. You never think you're poor, even when you own nothing, because you understand that your identity is not for sale to your current financial situation. You use broke as a phase, not a personality trait. You use your nothing years as training, not as proof you're cursed. Every shift, every commute, every late night becomes a rep. You stop worshiping appearances and start building reality. Not the fake reality of flexing, but the hard reality of skills, discipline, and reputation. You refuse to be driven only by immediate needs. You delay the quick highs so your future can have deep stability. You set a minimum price on your dignity. There are things you simply will not do, no matter how tight it gets. You protect your plans from small minds. You build quietly until your results force the conversation. You curate your circle like a ruler curates his court. Only those who pull you out of poverty thinking are allowed near your throne. You accept that initiating a new order of your life will feel dangerous, lonely, and confusing, and you still do it. You understand that nothing great, nothing truly great, is achieved without danger. So you stop being surprised when the path out of poor is paved with risk. And above all, you refuse to make poor your name. You can be broke. You can be behind. You can be starting from zero. But you do not, under any circumstance, look in the mirror and call yourself poor. You call yourself early. You call yourself unproven. You call yourself in training. Because one day, if you keep moving like this, that same mirror is going to show you a man other people call rich. And you will know the truth. You didn't become rich when the money showed up. You became rich the night you stopped thinking like you were poor. Let's be blunt. This wasn't about manifesting. This wasn't about pretending you're a millionaire in your head while ignoring your bills. This was about refusing to let your current lack turn you into a permanent victim. The world does not reward the man who sits in his scarcity and waits. It rewards the man who sees his scarcity clearly and still chooses to move as if he is building something too important to stop. Here's your recap in one sentence. Stop trying to feel rich before you act rich. Start acting like a man who cannot be made poor, even when he owns nothing. Now we're exactly where this kind of video always ends. Two roads. You can close this and go back to calling yourself poor. Back to broke jokes. Back to letting your bank balance bully your self-respect. You can keep numbing yourself with tiny comforts, tiny flexes, tiny escapes, and wake up years from now in the same place. just older and more tired. Or you can decide that tonight is the line. From now on, you stop saying you're poor. From now on, you treat your time, your discipline, and your standards as your first assets. From now on, you watch who you stand next to, what you say yes to, and what you build in the dark. And you use everything you've heard here as a filter for your habits, your circle, and your future. Final command. If you're done calling yourself poor, tap like. If you're ready to become the kind of person they can't underprice, can't pity, and can't quietly keep at the bottom, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment with "never poor" so I know you're one of the few who didn't click away when it got uncomfortable. And send this to the one friend who keeps joking about being broke, the one who doesn't realize every "I'm poor" is a spell he's casting on himself. Because this isn't self-help. This is strategy. This is war. And you didn't just watch a video. You just took your poverty and turned it into a weapon.